It started on a Thursday, the kind of Thursday that felt harmless until it didn't. The kind where the dishwasher hummed, the porch light flickered because I kept forgetting to replace the bulb, and I was on my knees in the kitchen tightening a cabinet hinge that had worked itself loose for the third time that month. I remember it because it was one of those small husband tasks I did without thinking. Fix the hinge, patch the trim, quietly maintain a house I convinced myself was a home. Mara came in with her arms folded so tight her fingers disappeared under her elbows. That posture meant she had an agenda. It usually meant her daughter Sienna wanted something Mara already knew I'd say no to. Evan, she began, with that calm, rehearsed tone. Sienna's friends are going to a lake house this weekend. It's only a couple hours away, one night. They'll be supervised. I didn't look up yet. I focused on the hinge because if I looked up, I'd see her face and start playing the game reading micro-expressions, trying to predict the argument before it started. She's 17, I said. It's a school weekend. I don't know the parents. I don't know the kids. And I'm not comfortable with an overnight trip out of town. Mara's laugh came sharp, quick and sour, like she'd already been offended before she walked into the room. You always have to control everything. I wiped my hands on a towel and finally stood, my knees cracking like an old door. I'm not controlling, I said. I'm being a parent. That's when she said it, flat, cold, precise. You'll never be her real dad. Stop pretending. The words didn't land like an insult at first. They landed like a trapdoor, like something under my feet finally gave up after years of creaking. For a moment, the kitchen felt smaller. The air felt thick. My brain did that strange thing where it zooms out and you see the scene like it's happening to someone else. A man standing in a kitchen holding a screwdriver, trying to understand how 10 years of effort could be erased by one sentence. Mara stayed there with her arms crossed, waiting for me to explode, waiting for the fight, waiting for me to defend myself like I had done in 100 smaller moments. But something inside me didn't break. It just shut off. Not dramatic, not a snap. More like a machine that has been running too long, finally stopping because the motor burned out. I didn't say a word. I set the screwdriver on the counter, carefully, like it mattered, and walked past her without touching her. I went out the back door into the yard and stood under the porch overhang while the night air cooled my face. I remember thinking, so that's what she thinks I am. A prop, a wallet, a stand-in. That was the moment the marriage ended. She just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm. My body was used to doing that, years of early jobs, project timelines, subcontractors calling too early. I lay there listening. Voices in the kitchen, Mara's voice, Sienna's voice, and another voice that didn't live here but always acted like it did. Mara's mother, Dolores. I got out of bed and walked halfway down the hallway, then stopped when I heard laughter. Not warm laughter, not family breakfast laughter. It had an edge. It was the kind of laughter people use when they're bonding over someone else's humiliation. She's finally standing up to him, Dolores said. Mara laughed. Oh, please, he acts like he's the only adult in this house. Then Sienna chimed in, casual and cruel in the way teenagers can be when they're sure they're safe. He's not even my dad. He just pays for stuff and thinks that gives him power. I stood there frozen, hand on the hallway wall. It wasn't the words themselves. After last night, I should have expected them. It was the way they said it, like it was obvious, like it was funny, like I was something they could talk about without even lowering their voices. He'll get over it, Mara said. He always does. He likes playing the martyr. That sentence did something the first one hadn't. It showed me the pattern. This wasn't a one-time argument. This wasn't a heated moment. This was a belief system they shared, a private agreement. They had been living in a version of reality where my presence was useful but not valued. I turned around and went back to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the room. Our room, the dresser, the picture frame on the nightstand, the closet where my side had slowly shrunk over the years as her things expanded. 10 years in this house. 10 years of showing up to school meetings. 10 years of teaching Sienna how to check the oil in her first car. 10 years of fixing things, saving money, keeping the roof solid so their lives could feel safe. I'd thought I was building a family. Now I realized I'd been the only one who believed it. And that's when my brain stopped being emotional and started being practical. If you've ever had your heart cracked clean down the middle, you know what I mean. There's grief, sure, but there's also this strange, calm clarity, like your body decides it can't afford panic because there's work to do. I made a list: lawyer, bank, realtor, accounts, timeline. No fight, no begging, no dramatic speeches, just clean edges. I called into work, told my operations manager to handle the crew. I stayed home. Upstairs, I pulled 2 suitcases from the closet and packed only the things that felt like mine. Clothes, toiletries, the old photo of my dad holding a fish he was proud of, a watch my mother gave me before she passed. Everything else, furniture, gifts, decorations, felt like evidence from a life I didn't want to testify for anymore. Then I called my attorney, Janice Harlow, the same one who handled the prenup years ago when Mara told me, smiling, that it was just a formality. Janice, I said, I need to move fast. There was a pause on the line, then her voice softened. Okay, tell me what happened. I told her the short version, not the emotional version, the legal version, the sentence, the pattern, the fact that the house was mine from before the marriage. You can sell, she said immediately. If the deed is in your name and it predates the marriage, it's separate property. I want it listed as soon as possible. I'll prepare the paperwork, she said, and Evan document everything from now on. Every text, every voicemail. Assume this gets ugly. I thanked her and hung up. Next, I called Renee Calder, the realtor who'd helped me buy the townhouse before I met Mara. I need to sell, I said. Renee didn't ask questions. She just said, today? As soon as you can? I'll be there in 2 hours, she replied. Then I handled the money. This part wasn't revenge. It was protection. I rerouted my paycheck deposits to a private account. I left the joint account open with enough for 1 month of bills, utilities, groceries, her car insurance. Not because I owed her comfort, but because I refused to become the villain in a story where I had been the foundation. I wanted the split to be clean, and then I wrote one note, not a letter, not a paragraph. One note in block letters on a yellow sticky pad. You're right, I'm not her real dad, and you're not my real family. I folded it once, placed it in the center of the kitchen counter, and looked around. The house was spotless, quiet, almost too calm. Mara and Sienna were still upstairs getting ready. Dolores's car was in the driveway. I grabbed my bags, locked the door behind me, and drove to my friend Cal's place across town. Cal was the kind of friend who didn't ask why first. He asked, where do you want to put your stuff? He opened the door, took one look at my face, and stepped aside. Spare room's yours, he said. Stay as long as you need. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped. I felt light, not happy, not yet, just unburdened. The for sale sign went up the next morning. Renee texted me a photo like she was confirming a mission had begun. 10 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Mara, I let it ring. Then the text began. Confusion, then anger. What is this, Evan? Are you trying to scare me? You can't sell our house. The word our almost made me laugh out loud. When she called again, I answered. My voice was steady, almost calm. It's not our house, Mara. It's mine. You can't just throw us out, she snapped. Sienna lives here. Her school. I left enough for the bills this month, I said. After that, you'll have to handle it. Her breath hitched. She wasn't upset about me. She was upset about logistics. about the sudden reality that I wasn't going to cushion the fall anymore. "You're heartless," she spat. "No," I said quietly. "Just finished." By evening, Janice forwarded me an email from a new law firm, Mara's attorney. Demands stop the sale, reinstate her access to accounts, pay emotional distress. Janice's reply was 2 paragraphs. It included the prenup and the deed. It ended with, "Further harassment will be considered frivolous litigation." After that, the messages turned desperate. Dolores left a voicemail accusing me of abandoning my family. I deleted it halfway through. Then Sienna texted, "No greeting, just entitlement. You still owe me for my phone and my insurance, and you said you'd help with college." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "Talk to your mom. I'm not your father." She responded with insults. I didn't read them. I blocked her number. Then I blocked Mara's. That night, sitting on Cal's porch with a beer I didn't taste, I realized something. The storm I'd feared, yelling, threats, guilt, had already passed. All that was left was silence, and I liked it. 3 days later, Renee called. "Just a heads up," she said. "Mara tried to contact one of my clients." My stomach tightened. What did she say? That you're unstable, that you're having a breakdown, that you can't manage your business. Of course, if she couldn't control me privately, she'd try to control how others saw me publicly. And it almost worked. The next afternoon, one of my biggest clients, an older developer named Stuart Keene, called and asked me to come in. When I arrived, his assistant led me to a conference room. There was a folder on the table. Stuart sat at the head, hands folded. "Your wife left a voicemail on my office line," he said. I nodded. I figured she might. He slid the folder toward me. It was a transcription of her message. Dramatic, accusatory, painted me as unstable, controlling, dangerous. I didn't defend myself emotionally. I didn't insult her. I did what I always did. I brought receipts, schedules, progress reports, signed deliveries, photos of completed work, updated invoices, everything clean, everything on time. I looked at Stuart and said, "My personal life is messy right now. My work isn't. If I ever slip, you'll be the first to know. Until then, that voicemail is a noise." Stuart stared at me for a long moment, then nodded once. "I've worked with you 5 years," he said. "You've never missed. Deliver the work. The rest doesn't matter." Walking out, I felt something close to relief. Mara's attempt to ruin me had backfired. Instead of poisoning my reputation, she reminded people why they trusted me. That same week, the townhouse got an offer above asking. Janice reviewed it. Closing set for 45 days. Mara and Sienna would have to move. No drama, just a date on a calendar. A week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Evan?" a man's voice asked. "This is Hector Lane, Sienna's father." My first instinct was to hang up. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since Hector disappeared when Sienna was little. Not since Mara told me he was unreliable and not worth involving. "What do you want?" I asked. "Mara called me," he said. "Said you're kicking them out and taking everything. I just wanted to hear your side." We met at a diner near the highway. Hector looked older than I expected. Tired, like someone who had carried regret long enough that it became part of his posture. I told him everything. The lake party, the sentence, the laughter, the legal facts. He listened without interrupting. Then he leaned back and exhaled. "That sounds like Mara," he said quietly. "She did the same thing to me. I messed up plenty, but she's good at turning people into villains." He rubbed his face, then looked at me. "I'll talk to Sienna," he said. "She deserves to hear the truth, even if she doesn't like it." A few days later, he called again. "Didn't go great," he admitted. "She called me a loser, said you were worse." He laughed without humor. "Mara's got her convinced the world owes her something." After that, things moved fast. Closing day came. The sale finalized. I signed papers, transferred funds, and felt the weight of that house lift off my shoulders. Mara moved into a two-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. I heard through mutual friends that she'd picked up weekend shifts at a salon. Dolores stopped visiting as much, probably because it was harder to play queen in a smaller castle. I expected satisfaction. I expected vengeance. What I felt was distance, like I'd been holding a hot pan for 10 years and finally put it down. My hands still hurt, but I could breathe. 3 months after the sale, I got another call. A man named Derek Hollis. "You don't know me," he said, voice cautious, "but I'm seeing Mara." I already knew why he was calling. There are patterns you can hear before someone finishes speaking. "Go on," I said. He hesitated. "Did she ever borrow money and not pay it back? Or say she'd fix something and then never did?" "Yes," I said. "Repeatedly." He exhaled hard. "She says it's temporary, that she's rebuilding. And she'll keep rebuilding with your money until you stop letting her." I said calmly. "Document everything. Freeze your credit. Close shared accounts." He went quiet. "She says you were controlling," he finally said. "I wasn't controlling," I replied. "I was providing. She just hated that it made her accountable." He swallowed. "Yesterday I found a credit card in my name I didn't open." My jaw tightened. "Then you need to leave," I said. "Now." 2 weeks later, Renee sent me a link, a local Facebook group warning people about a small claims filing. Derek had pressed charges. He'd done exactly what I told him. And that was when the message came. Unknown number. It was Sienna. Long sentences. No anger. Just shaky honesty. "I saw what Mom did to Derek. I get it now. I thought you were the problem. You weren't. You were just trying to help. You were good to me, and I treated you like trash. I'm sorry, I read it twice." Then I replied, "I appreciate that. I hope you learn from it. Take care of yourself." No guilt trip, no lecture, no, "I told you so." Just truth. Because the truth was, I wasn't her father, but I had shown up like one, and that mattered more than DNA. 6 months later, the divorce finalized. Janice handled it. The prenup held. Mara fought for more. Tried to paint me as cruel, but documents don't care about emotions. She received her share of joint savings. Enough for a restart, not enough to maintain the lifestyle she thought she deserved by default. I used part of my sale money to buy a small house near a quiet lake outside the city. 2 bedrooms, a workshop, space to breathe. My life fell into a new rhythm. Mornings, coffee on the porch, watching mist lift off the water. Afternoons, running my business remotely, taking calls, managing crews, building things that stayed built. Evenings, in the workshop, shaping wood into furniture, honest work, work that didn't pretend to love me back. Every once in a while, someone asked if I missed them. I didn't. What I missed was the idea of a family that never really existed. One evening, months later, I stopped at a grocery store in town. The line was long. I was checking my phone when I noticed her. Mara, 2 lanes over, basket of groceries in hand. Her clothes were plain, her face tired. Dolores wasn't with her, no performance, no entourage. For a second, her eyes met mine, and for a second, she looked like she wanted to speak. I gave a small polite nod, the kind you give an acquaintance you no longer know, and turned away. No anger, no bitterness, just nothing. Later that night, sitting at my kitchen table, I remembered that Thursday in the old kitchen, the hinge, the screwdriver, the sentence. "You'll never be her real dad." She was right about that part, but she was wrong about the rest. Because real isn't a title you get to deny someone after they've carried your life on their back. Real is what you do when no one thanks you. Real is showing up anyway. And now I was finally building something real for myself. Quietly, honestly. And for the first time in years, that was enough.